So I'm one of those people who are thankful for the extensive Star Wars lore because it's helped me through some of my toughest times. But even if I keep my personal bias aside, there is no denying the fact that the Star Wars universe has a legacy that's unmatched in fantasy science fiction. Now, as you all know, the Star Wars narrative involved loads of combat, from decisive battles between armies to emotionally charged duels. This means that the characters of this universe have to be strong in order to survive. But what about the ones who are a class apart, the strongest among the strong, and the nearly invulnerable, all-powerful beings? In this video, I'm going to dive into the lore around these gods and godlike beings in the Star Wars universe across all versions, and the impact that they've had on the narrative. If you're a fan, I promise this will be a treat for you.
Only the Chosen One could tame both my children.
I don't think a discussion on Star Wars would be complete without talking about the Force. But have you ever wondered about the origin of the Force that's the basis of this universe? Let me introduce you to the Ones, also known as the Mortis gods. They comprise a family of Force wielders from the planet Mortis, comprising of the Son, the Daughter, and the Father. They always existed in the ethereal realm of Mortis, which existed in the spiritual realm in the remote Crilithium system of Wild Space. Now, the Son was the embodiment of the dark side of the Force, but it would be wrong to interpret this as some kind of petty evil, because it's the inherent nature of the universe. The Daughter embodied the light side of the Force, and both of them were immortal as long as the Father lived. The Father maintained the balance between the light and dark side of the Force, and Mortis served as a sanctuary and prison for the family. This is regarded as the origin point of the Force, so you can say that before all the Jedi and Sith rivalry, this is what existed. The Father kept watch over the balance of the Force throughout the galaxy, but with time, the Son succumbed to the dark side's corruption, even though the Daughter remained loyal to the Father. Meanwhile, the Son planned to replace his father, which threatened the balance fabric of the universe. You have a detailed version of the Mortis arc in the Clone Wars, where the Father found out about the Chosen One, a prophesied figure in Jedi legend who would bring balance to the Force. He lured the Chosen One, Anakin Skywalker, to Mortis, and this made both the Son and Daughter curious. Skywalker, Obi-Wan Kenobi, and Padawan Ahsoka Tano all went there, and after landing, the Daughter revealed herself to them and took them to the Father. Even though the Son tried to ambush the journey, Skywalker reached the Father, who explained the identity of the Ones. Skywalker was made to face a test to prove that he was the Chosen One, and the Son and Daughter kidnapped his comrades and made him choose whom to save. But he freed both of them, and when the Father wanted him to assume his role, Skywalker refused and chose to leave. Finally, when the Son went rogue, the Father killed himself so that the Son would no longer be immortal and Skywalker could defeat him. This also resulted in the death of the Daughter, and the death of the Father caused the realm of Mortis to disappear. If you ever wondered about the gods in the Star Wars universe, I believe the Ones are the closest that you can get. Emperor Palpatine. I'm sure Emperor Palpatine needs no introduction for the fans, but I couldn't possibly end the list without mentioning him. Born on the mid-rim planet Naboo as Sheev Palpatine many years before the Battle of Yavin, he hailed from the dynastic Palpatine family and belonged to the affluent class, even though he was apparently the last of his family's bloodline. He grew up in close proximity to politicians and acquired a lot of knowledge over the years. The turning point in his life is when he chose to study under the Sith as an apprentice to the Dark Lord of the Sith, Darth Plagueis. He took the name Darth Sidious and constructed his own Sith lightsabers. He and Darth Plagueis worked together for years in an attempt to unlock the secrets to immortality, and Plagueis came up with a form of immortality through transference, a force power that allowed the user to transfer their spirit and consciousness. What I find so interesting about Palpatine, aka Sidious, is that he led a double life and took a great interest in politics and the life of Naboo. He went on to become a senator, and as he rose through the ranks, he observed the corruption that affected the Republic. He always kept his Sith identity a secret from the public eye, and eventually he orchestrated the fall of the Galactic Republic and the Jedi Order through the Clone Wars. It was then up to him to serve as the ruler of the galaxy, and this continued unchecked until his death at the Battle of Endor. It was during the Galactic Civil War that the Emperor tried to betray Darth Vader by replacing him with Luke Skywalker, but his plan didn't work because Vader renounced the dark side and killed him to protect Luke. The Force was brought back into balance, and this also fulfilled the prophecy of the Chosen One. However, Sidious was not really dead because, through the teachings of his master, he could transfer his essence into an imperfect clone vessel that was modeled on his original body. I think this is the true godlike power that he possessed, and he was able to cheat death. He also built the Sith Eternal Fleet on the hidden Sith planet Exegol, and a hidden armada was there capable of destroying entire planets. He himself operated from the shadows while his puppet Snoke controlled the First Order, and he planned to use Rey and Kylo Ren's combined power to restore himself fully. Given that Rey is his own granddaughter, it indicates that he had this backup plan his whole life. He nearly completed the restoration process and briefly became more powerful than ever before, but he was finally killed by Rey, who used 2 lightsabers to reflect his own Force lightning. Abeloth, Legends. Abeloth, whom many of you might know as the beloved Queen of the Stars, is another powerful Force entity. She is regarded as the bringer of chaos and the destructor, whose dark side and immortality were achieved after drinking from the font of power and bathing in the pool of knowledge. However, it all started from humble origins. She was a mortal woman who served the ones as a servant, and she became part of the family as the mother who balanced the warring son and daughter. But she was immortal after all and started to grow old, which made her concerned that she would lose this family. She became so desperate to hold on to life that she drank from the font of power and bathed in the pool of knowledge, which corrupted her and transformed her into Abeloth, an immortal entity. When the father found out about her actions, he left the planet with his children, and Abeloth was stranded. Even though the plan was to imprison her, she freed herself, and this became a vicious cycle. She would escape and again be defeated and imprisoned, and this went on for thousands of years. After the death of the father and the daughter, she remotely turned Jedi into renegade agents, and this put the Galactic Alliance Chief of State, Natasi Dala, against the Jedi Order. Finally, the Jedi Grand Master Luke Skywalker and his son Ben, along with the lost tribe of Sith, fought together and killed Abeloth. But she could possess other beings by sharing her Force essence among multiple bodies and remained hidden. Eventually, Luke Skywalker decided to search for the realm of Mortis to secure the dagger that could permanently kill her. I find the story of Abeloth quite intriguing, and I think she's nearly as powerful as her former masters. The Force Priestesses. I guess every Star Wars fan is familiar with the Wellspring of Life, which is also known as the Force Planet. This was the homeworld of the microscopic organisms that made life possible. The midi-chlorians and the Force Priestesses were the 5 beings that resided on the Wellspring of Life. Their existence holds a lot of significance because they represent the connection between the living force that's experienced by living beings and the cosmic force and its role in shaping the order of the universe. These 5 Force Priestesses manifested as serenity, joy, anger, confusion, and sadness. They don't have a conventional physical body, and they appear as masked, robed figures who represent a facet of the Force itself. The Force Priestesses are ancient beings, and I'd say that their greatest gift to the galaxy is the secret of conscious survival after death. They can be seen in the Clone Wars when Jedi Master Yoda encounters them, and they teach Yoda the path to becoming a Force ghost. This also means that the Jedi who appeared as a luminous being after death owe it all to the Force Priestesses. I also find it very interesting that Dave Filoni, the chief creative officer of Lucasfilm, indicated that the Force Priestesses might have started as one being who became 5 over a period of time. And regardless of that, they have to be one of the most important godlike beings in the Star Wars universe.
I discovered these images while going through the Jedi Temple archive.
The World Between Worlds. I don't know if it would be fair to call the World Between Worlds an entity, because it isn't one in the conventional sense of the term, even though it is a godlike force. You see, this is actually an extra-dimensional plane within the Force that serves as a collection of doors and pathways existing between time and space, linking all moments in time together. As Darth Sidious once said, this creates a conduit between the living and the dead, and those who control this plane would possess mastery over all of existence, even though gaining access is very challenging. The world between worlds was visualized in some sacred Jedi texts that were kept inside the Jedi Temple on the planet Ahch-To. It was only accessible from a painting of the Mortis gods that decorated the exterior of the Jedi Temple on planet Lothal. The native creatures of Lothal, called Lothwolves, were tied to the world between worlds, and they were capable of traveling through the realm in a similar manner as hyperspace travel. In simple terms, if one masters the world between worlds, they can witness events from the past as they happen, or pull someone out of their death, thus altering the path of history. After Darth Sidious learned about the Jedi Temple, the Sith Lord sought to find the world between worlds in his lust for power, but he did not succeed. There's even an entire episode in Star Wars Rebels titled A World Between Worlds. Here, Ezra finds himself in the mythical dimension of the Force, the world between worlds, and the voices of Yoda, Obi-Wan Kenobi, Ahsoka, Tano, and his late master Kanan echo around him, along with flashbacks of past events and events yet to come. Also, one of the most notable mentions of World Between Worlds comes in the Ahsoka series from 2023, when Ahsoka enters the realm, and it's described as a place outside of time and space, where the voices from throughout the Star Wars timeline can be heard. She reunites with her former master Anakin Skywalker, and this encounter transforms her character. She finds her way back to the main timeline, but her experience in the world between worlds still remains crucial. Bendu. If you think of an ancient entity in the Star Wars universe, I guess Bendu holds one of the top spots as the male Force wielder. He claimed to represent the center of the Force, between the light side and the dark side, and this ancient being rested peacefully on the planet Atollon. He became extremely knowledgeable over the years by meditating in the Force, and during all this time, he neither interfered with the teachings of the Jedi nor the Sith. However, he did choose to help the ones who were Force sensitive. He trained them to overcome their constraints, and later in his life, Bendu became familiar with the Sith and the whole process of fusing Jedi and Sith holocrons together. I think the most significant part of Bendu's story arc is when he sought out the Jedi Knight Kanan Jarrus and told him that his imbalance awoke from his slumber. The interaction with Kanan definitely made him wiser, and even later, he had to go back to Bendu with Ezra after he kidnapped one of the crew members of the Ghost. This is when Bendu corrected Ezra's view about the holocron and said that they were merely libraries that could grant clarity of vision or produce chaos depending on how one chose to utilize them. I love how the entire narrative explores the godlike guidance and wisdom provided by Bendu, who helps both Kanan and Ezra overcome their fears in the process. But all this aside, Bendu never actively participated in the wars between the Sith and the Jedi, and he wanted to keep his neutrality. As for his appearance, Bendu had a gigantic size and resembled a buffalo and a giant rocky monolith with 2 eyes, a flat nose, and a long beard. He was too powerful to be killed or subdued, and I think most of us would have seen him as a wise and patient teacher who was instrumental in Kanan learning the use of his other senses to bypass his blindness and overcome his fears. It's also been indicated in Star Wars Rebels that Bendu could foresee the future and predict the inevitable like he did. The Celestials, legends, architects of the galaxy. Well, the Celestials are regarded as the architects of the galaxy, and it's not for nothing. I mean, these ancient beings have existed long before the Republic, the Jedi, and the Sith, and their politics. When you think of some of the most basic structures in the Star Wars universe, it's their doing. For instance, the Centerpoint Station, which is a space station of an impossible size that's capable of moving entire star systems, was actually created by them, as was the Maw, a cluster of black holes surrounding a secret installation. They didn't have the most ethical methods to work because they enslaved entire species, like the Kalumi and the Killiks, to be used as a labor force, but they operated at such an advanced technology that it often baffled the Jedi Masters who failed to reverse engineer it. It's believed that their true nature could never be understood by the mortals of the universe, and the Force was influenced under their dominion. In fact, some even assume that the Ones were among the Celestials, and some Jedi and Sith members wrongfully infer that the Celestials have guided the balance between the light and dark sides of the Force. In any case, whatever little is known about the Celestials is simply because of the permanent impact of their cosmological constructions. And while I don't know if it would be appropriate to term them as godlike, they are certainly one of the most ancient species ever. Their vanishing from the map of history is also quite random and abrupt because around 35,000 BBY, one of their subjected races revolted and exterminated them. Their final fate is not clearly known, but by 30,000 BBY, they were nowhere to be found. You'll find a lot of mention of the Celestials in the Star Wars gaming lore, and even novels like Legacy of the Force series and the Corellian trilogy have some of this information about them. Bedlam spirits, legend. Would I be wrong if I said that the Bedlam spirits are one of the least understood entities in the Legends lore? I think not. The Bedlam spirits were an omnipotent group who lived on the planet Bedlam, and they were capable of manipulating time and mass. There is an interesting fan theory that suggests that the Bedlam spirits are the children of the Celestials, like the son and daughter, and they fled from their creator for thousands of years because he intended to destroy them. Now, I know this is a bit far-fetched, but it does sound believable for some reason. The Bedlam spirits included Kol Dandasine, Talatni, Horlus, and Splendid Ap, and these spirits were apparently prone to childish behavior even though they had such godly powers. While Princess Leia was escaping from the Imperial troops, she encountered these Bedlam spirits during the Galactic Civil War. But let me quickly remind you that these are beings who are almost as ancient as the Celestials. I think the best way to describe the Bedlam spirits is that the Legends universe attempted to create a few genuinely cosmic characters, and this was the answer, as something that goes beyond the Force or the light and dark sides. Waru, legends. So far, we've been discussing godlike beings in the Star Wars universe, but Waru goes beyond that. He was a trans-dimensional being who existed in a universe parallel to the galaxy's own, only with the opposite rules. Those known to the New Republic databases were very different from Waru and his species, and he was reportedly considered to be a healer by many because he could treat injuries using his own body. He had a blob-shaped appearance, and he consisted of several golden plates that acted as shields around a layer of raw, permeable tissue. He was so gigantic that his insides were big enough for 3 adult humans to swim through. A little before 14 ABY, Waru was sent from his dimension courtesy of Darth Vader's former apprentice, the Imperial Procurator of Justice, Hethrir, who wanted to master the Force. Meanwhile, Waru was desperate to find a way home, and he struck a deal with Hethrir. He agreed to grant Hethrir his wish concerning the Force if the former could bring him a being powerful enough to create his way home. While Hethrir tried to find someone suitable, Waru resided on Cursey Station and developed a cult following known as the Cult of Waru. He healed people, and in order to maintain himself, he would often sustain those he treated. He crossed paths with some prominent characters from the Star Wars universe, and it remains unknown what finally happened to him. He may have died, but there's a chance that he actually went back to his home dimension. For me, the best bit is how he is portrayed as a healer, which can have consequences, even though the narrative around him never suggests that he is evil. Mortis Realm, Mortis itself. If Mortis is a realm, then why am I assigning so much importance to it and pitching it on the list of gods and godlike beings? Well, anyone who knows about the Mortis realm will know the answer to this. Mortis is a strange, mystical realm in the Star Wars universe that feels like a planet, but is more like a living pocket of the Force itself. It cannot be mapped or understood like a normal world, because its landscape constantly shifts, with forests, mountains, caves, and even floating land masses appearing and moving in ways that do not follow normal rules. The realm is divided into a bright, peaceful day phase full of lush fields and beauty, and a dark, deadly night phase when everything withers and dies, making Mortis feel like a cycle of life and decay. I think it adds to the mystery that travelers rarely reach Mortis by choice. Instead, they are pulled there by some unseen will, sometimes through a huge monolith in space, or by stumbling through a door or portal that seems to appear out of nowhere. Time also works differently on Mortis, so what feels like days or weeks inside can pass in just moments outside. The realm is inhabited by only 3 powerful Force-wielding beings: the Father, who embodies balance, the Daughter, who represents the light side, peace and creation, and the Son, who represents the dark side, destruction and chaos. Together, this trio forms a tiny mirror of the whole galaxy's struggle between light and dark, and Mortis is treated as a kind of fulcrum or central point where the entire Force flows through, making it one of the most powerful and mysterious places in the Star Wars mythos. Darth Nihilus. I always find Darth Nihilus to be someone who is less of an individual and more of a walking void in the Force. He was once a living being, but the horrors of the Battle of Malachor V and the activation of a terrible superweapon left him shattered, turning him into a wound in the Force and making him a being of pure hunger. Darth Traya, a fallen Jedi, found him in that state and taught him how to use his hunger to drain the Force from entire living worlds, turning him into the Lord of Hunger. Nihilus's existence is tied to his mask and robes, and he no longer needs a true physical body. What little remains of him is sustained only by constantly feeding on the Force energy of other beings, including whole planets full of life. He can sense Force-sensitive organisms across vast distances, and can wipe out everything connected to the Force on a world, leaving it gray, dead, and empty. Nihilus is also a skilled duelist and a master of dark side powers, able to amplify his attacks and even extend some of his abilities to reach entire star systems. He eventually joins the Sith Triumvirate alongside Darth Traya and Darth Sion, using his massive fleet and endless hunger to hunt Jedi and weaken the galaxy's Force-sensitive population. His reign ends when he faces a powerful Jedi exile on Telos 4 and tries to devour them, but a sacrifice by his loyal follower, Visas Mar, breaks his link to the Force, causing his power and his body to collapse and leading to his final defeat. The Wills. You can understand how important the Wills are in the Star Wars universe when you realize that George Lucas himself described the Wills as microscopic, single-celled organisms that are essentially the Force and the true masters of the universe. For this reason, they are referenced in the oldest texts of the Star Wars universe and explained as entities connected to the will of the Force itself. They wrote the Journal of the Wills, which was basically a record of events in the galaxy, and this is the text that referenced the Jedi and had poems about the dark side and light side of the Force. Essentially, they influence all galactic events and direct destinies, such as directing the creation of Anakin Skywalker. There were shamans among the Wills, and one of them taught the Jedi Master, Qui-Gon Jinn, the ability to retain one's consciousness after death. I don't think I need to tell you about the importance of the Journal of the Wills as a framing device through which the Star Wars history is recorded. There are even some interpretations that suggest that the microscopic life forms called the midichlorians exist to communicate the will of the Wills to the physical world. If you go by this, then every Force vision and the sequence of events can actually be considered to originate from the Wills. Originally, Lucas thought of them as wise and immortal beings who were watching and recording the story, and the plan was to explain them in his sequel trilogy. As I come to the end of this list, I realize that there's really no end to the fascinating stuff around the Star Wars universe. I mean, there are just too many intriguing characters and too much lore to make sure that the geeky fellows like us always have something to fall back on. These godlike entities in the lore have shaped the stories in many ways, and their impact is unquestionable. And I hope you enjoyed revisiting these iconic entities with me. Do let me know in the comments below which other Star Wars content you'd like me to cover, and I'll be happy to oblige. Also, if you appreciate the efforts to bring you this content, please hit the like button and subscribe to the channel for more.